Hey guys, what's up? It is week 367. We have a bunch of reviews for you, so let's hop into this. And this first one is from Eureka Films. Now, this is kind of a trilogy of films. This is the Prison Walls, Abashiri Prison 1 through 3. There are 10 of these films. They're all directed by Teruo Ishii. Teruo Ishii directed a bunch of films that you guys would be familiar with. Arrow put out like Inferno of Torture, Joys of Torture, and he put out Yakuza Law. There was like 9 films in this series that were kind of like all involving some sort of torture. They were very weird anthology kind of films. Now 4 or 5 of them have been released on Blu-ray. There's still a couple that are not. He didn't direct all of them. He directed 4 or 5 of these movies, but he directed all 10 of, or the first 10 of these prison walls movies, Abashiri, and the first one he did was 1965 for Toei. Now, I guess what he wanted to do, this is based off a book of the same name, or similar name, and he wanted to kind of do his own thing of the Defiant Ones, which is the prisoners chained together that escape, that hate each other's guts. It's been done a bunch of times. We hate each other, but we're stuck together. We're going to have to live with it. Even been done in the buddy cop formula. So he was really interested in doing a story like that. So that's just kind of the last act of the film. What we have here is a low-level Yakuza that gets sentenced to this prison. It's a black and white film. It's pretty gorgeous looking, actually. The black and white helps, I think. It makes a gritty style to it. And if I had to compare this to one film, now it's not as quite as epic or as big or as good as this, but it reminded me a bit of Runaway Train. And to a certain extent, probably just because the prison, the train, the escape, all sorts of things like that. But so the film kind of progresses. We have our lead guy here, who's in a bunch of films. He's very recognizable. Ken Takakura. And he's one of these guys that I've seen probably pop up in a bunch of these later day Yakuza movies in the 60s and 70s as well. So essentially what happens is he's in here, and we get a glimpse of his past, and he's in there with all sorts of different guys, kind of a higher level Yakuza, an old man who committed an awful act, some young kids, and a complete degenerate. One of these guys is a complete degenerate. And at first he just wants to keep his head down and do his time. He has 3 years to do it, and a probation officer kind of takes a kindness to him, and that's kind of where we're at here. And to kind of prove to the other guys and prove to himself that he's not just kind of pushover, he does act out a little bit here, but he's kind of corresponding with his family, and through the flashbacks we learn that him and his family have a very shaky past, especially with his father, and his mother is very sick. So it's very kind of standard, kind of tropey stuff here, sick mother, and you're stuck in prison, so he really wants to get out of here. So there's a prison break attempt, basically a planning of a prison break. This is an elaborate thing where all the guys in his kind of cell, his unit, kind of want to break out of here. Even though he has a lot of trouble with them, they're kind of forcing it on him, trying to get him to go along with it. But as it progresses, they realize that it's not really going to work out. But he ends up getting stuck handcuffed to a prisoner that does attempt an escape, and he's damned for it as well. And I don't want to give everything away, but there's a big chase scene and all sorts of things like that. And his nature, you think that this good-natured quality to him that's below the awful exterior is going to kind of go to waste, but I don't want to spoil it. At first, it was very nerve-wracking and very on the nose to what was happening, but it does play out at the end that is satisfying. I thought the acting was solid. I thought the lead character was interesting. I thought that it had something kind of important to say. I thought the degenerate character that he's paired up with in handcuffs was really well developed and kind of like a one-dimensional kind of creep, but, he gets a little moment here and there. I thought this was the best of the 3. This is my personal favorite, actually. Abashiri Prison, probably because it has a sense of grittiness and a sense of, you don't really know where it's going. So I would recommend the first one for sure, 1965, Ishii film. Ishii also did some other movies like Blind Woman's Curse from 1970, which is a real cool kind of, it's kind of revenge, kind of ghost story deal, kind of horror revenge story, really cool stuff. I think when we did 1970, Moods had it in his top 10 for the 22 shots. So yeah, good film. Okay, the second film in here is called Another Abashiri Prison Story, which is funny. It could be a prison story, but the movie doesn't take place in prison. So this one came kind of quite as a shock. It's in color. The first one was fairly successful. The second and third one will be even more successful. So they put some more money behind this. So they got color. They brought back the lead actor. They bring back a lot of the same actors in kind of weird different roles. And this is the least favorite of the trilogy for me. And I have a feeling that it's probably just because it's a complete shift of film and tone and everything about it, and the lead character doesn't really necessarily seem like he's cut from the same movie or the same storyline. and I don't want to be too hard on it because it is kind of a fun, farcical. A lot of characters, you have to pay close attention to what happens. So essentially, what is going on in the very beginning, we have this kind of robbery. This guy ends up stealing all these diamonds, and he kind of puts them in these kind of weird, kind of felt egg things that are religious symbols. I don't really know what they are too much in our country, or maybe I'm just not. I guess I just don't. I've never really seen them, so maybe I'm ignorant to it. But what happens is he has a nun hide them. It's not a real nun, of course, on her. And one of them rolls away on this boat ride. All of our characters are on the boat as well. Our lead character and some of his friends and everything, a couple former convicts. One of the characters is kind of being transported to another prison, and he's taking all this credit for crimes and whatnot that he possibly didn't do. But the thing is, everybody ends up going after this felt thing because it's filled with diamonds, and it changes hands several times. And there's all these different kind of traders and back and forth, and it does have like a kind of a silly, goofy thing. In the commentary. They basically bring up stuff like nothing is as it seems. We have all these sweet little women that we see, this group of women, but they all end up being like these strippers. So nothing is as it seems. It goes all over the place. It's a big film. It's kind of just silly, kind of farcical in a weird way, and it just didn't really catch me very much. It is kind of if you stop paying attention, you're going to lose where the hell you are, who has it, all this kind of stuff like that. But that's the second one, another Abashiri prison story, which is my least favorite of the three. Not a horrible. Same director, same year, 65. Just a step down for me. Just guess what I expected. And, the first time watch, when, you watch sequels that aren't really the same or different tone or stuff, that it's jarring. It's just kind of confusing at first, but sometimes you come around to them. All right, the third story in here is Abashiri Prison, a story of homesickness. Really strange thing here. So now our lead kind of feels more like he's from the first film. But this one is definitely the more traditional Yakuza film. If anybody's seen the Yakuza films, like from the 70s that, Fukasaku directed and stuff like Kinji Fukasaka, I think that's his name, directed, and all those kind of movies, Battles Without Honor and Humanity and whatnot. It's kind of in those veins, but just not as crazy. Well, with this one I found that was really kind of refreshing in a weird way is we have our lead character here. He's trying to go straight. We bring back a lot of the same characters from his prison and his Yakuza days, so they're there. And we've seen flashbacks in the first film, what he's capable of, the violence that he is capable of, and he's a pretty intense guy. So basically, but he keeps his cool for 90% of the movie. There's a weird kind of thing in here where there's a child actor in blackface supposed to play a black little girl, from my understanding. It doesn't age well, obviously. It was probably kind of slightly embarrassing then too, but in Japan, it has a different connotation. It's still like, what the fuck, and it's still kind of odd, but I feel like Japan even then probably thought less negatively of that, it is what it is kind of deal. But we have a character who our lead kind of takes pity on because it's a homeless black girl, and he kind of like reaches out and tries to help her as much as he can. I believe it's a female character, even to go so far to try to figure out who the mother is of this character. But what happens is he's trying to go legit, and he's got himself a business. His Yakuza boss is from the original film, and he wants them to stay, non-violent. But what's happening is another Yakuza gang is pressuring him to and they're putting a lot of pressure on them, and they're both kind of fighting for the same kind of job. Of course, it's going to escalate. Some people are going to get killed, and it's going to end in a pretty crazy fashion, which is entertaining. And the thing I really like about this is there's a kind of weird side character who seems pretty sick, and he's coughing all the time. He's really cool. He seems like he's right out of a Tarantino movie, and he shows up at the end as well and has a good fight, or a moment, I should say. I wouldn't call it a fight, but and the thing is, like, what I like about this movie when I get to it is, how in a lot of the gangster movies or Yakuza movies or all these like criminal movies, everybody's always doing a big heist, or they're doing these big crimes, or they're whacking somebody, or they're into drugs and prostitution. Like, the stuff that they're doing in here is almost very petty. Like, at times in this series, they're hiring him to sell like braziers on the street, but before long, and like these are such petty crimes. Like how they always say that like the mafia basically just waters down olive oil now. So it seems like this has some genuine truth to it, that not every crime is this huge giant thing. And I was kind of surprised that the ending went there. A lot of them do kind of go to that point where they kind of escalate until there's a big showdown. But this one almost seemed like it was toned back a little bit, but it does deliver on that at the end, and it's pretty good stuff, honestly. As far as the special features are concerned, we have HD presentation, all 3 films. Elements supplied by Toei. Original Japanese audio. Optional English subtitles. Brand new audio commentary tracks by Tom Mez for the first film. Chris Palagi for the second film. And Mike Leader and Ernie Vinema for the third film. Breakout, Jasper Sharp and Mark Schilling discuss Abashiri prison, and that's good because that's pretty long. They talk about his other films and how there's hidden comedy within it, and a lot of people have wrongfully said this director is kind of straight-faced with his torture films, but that's not necessarily true. Tony Raines on the film, brand new interview with film critic Tony Raines, and then trailers plus a collector's booklet featuring new writing on the film by Mark Schilling. Yeah, this is a cool series, and it was something that I saw different from Teruo Ishii. I again was more familiar with his horror-oriented movies and kind of violent Yakuza things. That's more of the torture kind of stuff too, but I do prefer the other ones, but I think that the Abashiri prison, the first one is really good, and the third one is worth watching. The second one's not really my jam, but I think a lot of people will still enjoy it, and just when you go into that one, be reminded that it's nothing like the other two. So yeah, check it out. Alright guys, the next one is from Eureka Films, and this is A Queen's Ransom from 1978. This is a Hong Kong flick, of course, with Jimmy Wang Yu and George Lazenby, who played James Bond. Of course, after the Bond kind of films, he ended up being in a couple of these kind of Hong Kong, films and Australian films. I think he was in A Man from Hong Kong, where he kind of has some fight, ability, and Jimmy Wang Yu was in One Arm Boxer, famous martial artist before Bruce Lee actually kind of had fame. But yeah, The Queen's Ransom. This movie is fucking bonkers. This is a bonkers, weird, strange movie. Bolo Young is in here looking great. He looks awesome. He's got the tank top and the long hair. He's looking huge, bodybuilding and everything like that. So in the very beginning, the Queen is going to visit Hong Kong. But there's a group of terrorists that want to assassinate the Queen. There's like 10 of them, and it's ran by George Lazenby and his girlfriend or his side piece or whatever she is. And Jimmy Wang Yu is there, and he's like a special diver, I think. So in the very beginning, the military or the royal police know that they're going to try to hit on the Queen, and the Queen refuses to do anything different. No, I'm coming here. People need to see me. I'm not afraid. But this whole gang is full of experts, and we have a rundown who they are. They're like demolition expert, all these mercenary, American, all these kind of things like that. So they establish all these kind of crazy characters. There's some familiar faces too. The terrorist with the glasses always plays a villain, man. I think he's in something like Calamity of Snakes or one of those ones where he plays in that kind of role. I can't remember which one. I've seen so many of these like Hong Kong horror films now and weird movies like that. So essentially, we figure out that they're going to carry out this terrorist act. But there is another character kind of intermingled here. She's a prostitute that she basically gets hired by the police to kind of infiltrate the gang and figure all these things out. But it turns out that she has a direct connection with Jimmy Wang Yu's character, so he is torn on whether to carry out this assassination or to go through with it. And he has this relationship with his newfound person that he didn't know was there. So it complicates things. The bad guys start to catch on to him, and some other people get caught, and all these twists and turns. Lazenby's really fun in it. Of course, Jimmy Wang Yu is good. But at the third act, it completely does something that you don't expect, and you're like, what is this movie now? What are we doing here? Like, it was to the point where I'm like, this is fucking wild. And we have this big action set piece involving another character that's pretty much in there. That's in there, and you don't know why they're even there, to be honest, until the ending. And you're like, that makes a lot of sense. Overall, A Queen's Ransom is a lot of fun. There's a lot of action. It's not the best kind of martial arts action film I've ever seen, but it was enjoyable, especially for just the kind of bonkers-ass, what-the-fuck moments. As far as the special features are concerned, we have the theatrical cut, which is longer, and then we have an extended cut. Both have commentaries on there. Frank Jin does the theatrical cut and with Michael Worth, and brand new audio commentary and export with Michael Leader and Artie Vermona. Furious George, brand new documentary featurette by martial artist and actor Michael Worth. I love that because this guy knows his stuff, and he talks about, I think he worked training with George Lazenby or had interactions with him training, and he talks about Lazenby. He's like, he wasn't a martial artist, but the dude had some street fighting ability, and he goes through. That guy's just really well spoken, really intelligent, and those are the kind of people you want to see talk about movies and talk about how they were made, because it's like intricate little details that not really that many other people would know, so it's good that it's captured on here. But yeah, this is a fun, wild, crazy movie at Queen's Ransom. Bolo Young, like I said, looks awesome in here. Love to see him in here. Always love seeing him. Ever since I was a 4 or 5 year old kid watching Bloodsport and Double Impact, Bolo Young has been there. And and then when I see him in these old Hong Kong movies as I get older, I'm like, oh shit, that's where he's from. That's why he's awesome. All that great stuff. But yeah, check out A Queen's Ransom from Eureka. Good stuff. Now we're getting some real weird ones here. This is from 1978, and this is a short film, actually. This is from MVD Rewind, and it has a series of short films on here. But we're going to talk first and foremost about Hardware Wars, which is a parody of Star Wars, of course. So in 77, Star Wars came out, and it changed everything. Huge movie, of course. And before Spaceballs, there was Hardware Wars. And this is kind of just like almost an extended, like, 13-minute trailer where they kind of just show you everything that's going to go on, and all the characters are introduced. It's very funny. It's very clever. The wordplay is really unique, not unique, but just funny, and it's so silly. I don't know how to get it. It's made with a lot of passion, and that really helps it move forward. I really enjoyed seeing it. Like I said, there's not too much to say about it. Everyone has really silly nicknames like Ham Salad for Han Solo, and Chewbacca is basically just a Muppet, kind of from Sesame Street. Really silly, but funny. But that's not really the only thing they're going to put on here because it's such a short thing. The director, actually, what is his name? Ernie Fosselius, the former member of the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo. Yeah, that explains a lot, because if you've ever seen Richard Elfman's movies, they are fucking wild. The lead singer of Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman's brother. So they're super wild. So basically, what else we have in here is multiple versions of the film. Hardware Wars Director's Cut, Hardware Wars Prequel Featurette, which is kind of a weird kind of smorgasbord thing that's kind of like hints at possibly a new one coming out. Hardware Wars foreign version, which is hilarious because it's dubbed and it's got all these silly kind of things in there. 1978 Creature Features Interview with the writer, and that's played for comedy, played for laughs, very bizarre. Hardware Wars Saves Christmas, of course, that's kind of like using the same footage with some like Jingle Bell kind of like poem, and it's also very silly. And a lot of times you're just like, what is this? And then before long you catch yourself chuckling and just being entertained. There's also Pork Lips Now, which is absolutely fucking hilarious, from 1980. This is about 22 minutes long, and this is a parody on Apocalypse Now. I love this thing. This thing was great. I have the narration, and essentially these two guys hire this butcher at the very beginning. These butchers hire this guy, and they're like, listen, he's selling meat too cheap. We want him to, and they're like, what? And it goes on for like 5 minutes. Essentially, it just parodies Apocalypse Now perfectly in a silly ass way about, this guy trying to take out this butcher who's selling prices for super cheap. Instead of like surfing, we have skateboarding or bicycling, and we even have I Love the Smell of Napalm kind of done in its own silly way. But this movie is bonkers and weird and zany and absolutely hilarious. It's so crazy it was made like 2-3 years after Apocalypse Now, kind of similar to the Star Wars one he made 1 year after. So yeah, anyways, Pork Lips Now, really funny stuff. And then we have Plan 9.1 from Outer Space, and this is made like 2009, and this is basically Plan 9 from Outer Space, a shorter version made with puppets and added comedic stuff in here. They make fun of the bad acting and all that kind of silliness and props, and it's really funny. It's really endearing as well. And then, of course, we have, we don't have the Antique Awards reel, maybe. There's an Antique Roadshow parody in here, and that shit's really funny. It's done perfectly and straight-faced, and I thought that was one of the funniest parts of the movie, the Antique Roadshow parody that talks about Hardware Wars being found on film. And that sticker is worth $14. Yeah, but anyways, Hardware Wars from MBD. It's a bizarre movie. It's funny. It's worth watching. Definitely a cult item. Movies I'd never seen. I'd heard only in passing about Hardware Wars and maybe Pork Lips Now. I don't know. But Pork Lips Now is perfect. Even the name makes me laugh, so check it out. Okay, we have a 4K from Arrow Films by Guillermo del Toro from 2015. One of my personal favorites of his. This is Crimson Peak. And this is kind of like they did a special edition Blu-ray, but now we have it in 4K. And I have to say, honestly, this might be the best looking 4K I've ever seen. I mean, Del Toro is infamous for his production design, his production quality, his cinematography, all that kind of stuff in here. So seeing it in 4K, I just was completely taken aback. This stars Tom Hiddleston and, of course, Jessica Chastain. I can't think of the lead actress's name. Jim Beaver is in here as well, Doug Jones. So Crimson Peak. This is a gothic romance ghost story. And the thing is, our lead character is a writer who writes these kind of stories growing. She's a woman, so she's struggling through that. Women don't, right? Yada, yada, yada. Same stuff Mary Shelley probably had to deal with all these kind of, classic writers and everything like that. It's a period piece. And her father is very rich. He's like, he came from steel, so he has a lot of money now and everything like that. And she's kind of into her books, into her writing, and kind of separates from the high class society. It's not really her thing. She's into her books. And the thing about that is, with with the books and with all of her writings and stuff, they can make direct comments about the genre in itself and the film itself, which is very fun to kind of see. Although at times it gets to be on the nose, I still love the damn thing, and it's so poetic and so beautiful. And similar to his other films like The Devil's Backbone, we have that narration, and that narration is just something to me that Del Toro uses so well to set up a story. This is about almost 2 hours long, but one thing I truly love about Del Toro is you can see his influences on his sleeves. You see Hammer, you see all these gothic kind of storytellings, but like even in the small details, I see like Argento and Fulci, and I just love that. I love that he is truly a horror fanatic and a film fanatic, and it really does show. But anyways, what happens is Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain are brother and sister, and they come from England. They're suffering because they basically come from money, and they have a giant mansion, but it's crumbling, and they're poor. And Tom Hiddleston's big dream is to design this thing to kind of mine the clay from his area, which is a nasty red clay, and they live in this really cold, disgusting place. But what happens is Tom Hiddleston starts to court this young writer. She's not young, but this writer. And, of course, the father is taken out of the picture in a really brutal way. That's what's kind of wonderful about his movies. At times, they seem whimsical. They seem very high fantasy, and you put your guard down, adventure, but grounded in realism when you see the violence. The hardcore violence, the special effects are just like, oh, wow, you're taken back at it. And I always kind of admired how he did that. He showed the fantasy and adventure so much so poignant, so strong, and so whimsy, but then he'll show violence as it is disgusting and brutal. You see it in Pan's Labyrinth as well. He mixes that harsh reality with that high fantasy, or that high kind of science fiction, or high horror, or just something that seems very genre, but then we're put into this reality very quickly when it comes to the brutality. So, in the very beginning of the film, she is warned, beware of Crimson Peak, which I love premonitions in films, especially when the premonitions, you hear them, you know what they mean, they haunt you for the rest of your life, but by the time you get there, it's too fucking late. And that happens in here, and I have to respect that, because it's always something that just really creeped me out, Fulci's The Psychic does that too. And there's other films, House by the Cemetery, The Premonition and the Painting, and they say don't go here, and you end up there anyways. All these kind of things like that. It's just, you've been warned. Shining too, stay out of room 237, and just all that kind of stuff. The warnings are the scary part, and obviously it's kind of almost fate in this point. But when she gets to the place after her father dies, she moves in with Tom Hiddleston. She's obviously realizing something's not right between these two, and that's when it gets real gothic, if you know what I mean. There's a gothic trope in there that's pretty nasty, which probably helped contribute to the star rating. But she's visited by these different ghosts, all of which who appear to have died a violent death. There's practical and digital effects mixed. They look really good. The house itself was built. It was actually built on a set. The house was built into like a real house. It looks awesome. It's magical. They made the hallways designed to fit the actors, to fit the characters. So they went ahead and did all this kind of stuff to make it such a unique experience. So much stuff went into the design of the house, into the characters' outfits that match the house, everything, the lighting. It is one of the most beautiful looking 4Ks I've ever seen. It's one of my favorite Del Toro movies, and I know it's kind of splits the audience. I never really understood why. Maybe they're vastly more familiar with gothic horror ghost stories than me, but this one just really hits the sweet spot. I've seen this movie 3 times, and it gets better every time. There's no complaints. Tom Hiddleston is excellent in here. So is Jessica Chastain. She is so scary in here. And I love, the difference between a villainous woman and a villainous man in a movie. You can see like the boiling over in a woman in these movies with this kind of character type. And, she's just not over the top. She hides her cards really well, but she's just a constant boiling up and down, that quietness, like that smile on her face that underneath is just, you can tell, dead. There's no happiness under there. I do like what they say about love. I do love the narration at the very end. I love the line, beware of Crimson Peak. I love the ghost. I think this movie is excellent. I think there's just so many the kind of great designs about it. The idea of coming from old money, but everything you have is rattled and torn and everything like that. It's just a great movie. Great release as well. Has a bunch of features on here. So it has 4K Ultra and Dolby Vision, HDR10 compatible, approved by director, original DTSX audio, subtitles, of course, optional descriptive video service for visually impaired, audio commentary by Del Toro. The House is Alive, Constructing Crimson Peak, a feature-length documentary with the cast and crew interviews and extensive behind-the-scenes footage, Spanish language interview with Del Toro, The Gothic Corridor, the Scullery, the Red Clay Mines, the Limbo Fog Set, 4 featurettes exploring different aspects of Alderdale Hall, a primer on Gothic romance. The director and stars talk about the key traits of Gothic romance, the light and dark of Crimson Peak. The cast and crew talk about the film's use of color. Hand-tailored Gothic, a featurette on the film's striking costumes, a living thing, a look at the design, modeling, and construction of Alderdale Hall sets. Beware of Crimson Peak, a walking tour around the hall with Tom Hiddleston. Crimson Phantoms, a featurette on the film's amazing ghost. Kim Newman on Crimson Peak and tradition of Gothic romance, an interview with actor and critic, and then author and critic, and then we have Violence and Beauty in Del Toro's Gothic fairy tale films, a video essay by writer Kat Ellinger, deleted scenes, image gallery, original trailers and TV spots, double-sided fold-out poster, 4 double-sided postcards, limited edition packaging designed by Crimson Peak concept artist Guy Davis, limited edition 80-page hardbound book featuring writing by David Jenkins and Simon Abrams, an archival interview with Del Toro, and original conceptual design illustrations by artist Guy Davis and Oscar Chicachinio. I can't say that right now. I'm going to lose my voice. But a great, wonderful release. Looks beautiful. One of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. Crimson Peak. Okay. In honor of Roger Corman, I wanted to watch a Roger Corman movie. He passed away within the last week or so. This is obviously going to be later because it's filmed at a certain time. But R.I.P. Roger Corman, one of the greatest directors, horror producers, exploitation directors. Got so many people their start. He's a legend. And I decided to watch one of the Roger Corman, Vincent Price, Poe adaptations that I hadn't seen. So I decided to watch Tomb of Ligeia. So yeah, this was made in 1965, same year as the Ishii movies. But yeah, this stars Vincent Price, the one and only, an amazing actor, and some other familiar faces as well. This one was actually shot in Britain. I think it's an AIP Pictures co-production as well. But being a Poe story that I'm not too familiar with, it's not like The Black Cat or Cast of Amontillado or any of those, Masquerade of Red Death. Those ones I'm familiar with to a certain extent. I've read maybe once or twice, but this one I have not. Tomb of Ligeia. So what we have here is, in the very beginning, we have this woman and this brother and sister kind of riding horseback, and she kind of goes to this cemetery, and she ends up falling off this horse. I think a cat kind of gets her to fall off the horse in front of this grave. And Vincent Price shows up, and he's very bizarre in this one. He doesn't have his mustache. He's wearing this hat. He's wearing these, big glasses that he tells are blocking the sun. And he basically, goes to help her and tell her that she had a spill. The brother comes along. And he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to have to carry you. And she becomes instantly intrigued in Vincent Price for some reason. Maybe it's his weirdness, his bizarreness. And they end up going to his big, beautiful mansion. And before long, they start to court each other. Vincent Price is super bizarre. There's this great moment in here where you learn that something tragic did happen to his wife. There's a great moment in here where they're kind of going for a romantic scene, and it's getting closer and closer, so you only are on them. And all of a sudden, the cat that made her fall before attacks, and it's like, and it just scratches her face. Now, Vincent Price is convinced that this cat is either a familiar of his late dead wife or possibly his wife kind of transforming. That's kind of the idea that you get. There is also kind of a butler there that's taking care of Price and the estate. And over time, we kind of get the flashback to figure out what happened through story and everything to Price's wife. This one is really well done. It looks gorgeous. Price is excellent in it. A very bizarre, kind of crazy performance. It gets dark. It does remind me of, some of the Bava stuff that would come later. There's definitely inspiration for that. But overall, I think this is one of the... it's hard to say one of the best Poe adaptations because none of them are bad. They're all really good, from Fall of the House of Usher. Pit and the Pendulum, House of Usher, Mask of Red Death. All the ones that with Poe and directed by Corman are great stuff. I love the cat horror in here, I'm not going to lie. The ending is pretty crazy, pretty big mind fuck, honestly. But yeah, it's exactly what you expect it to be. Gothic mansions, Vincent Price losing his mind, some twists and turns. Nothing is as it appears to be. And it does have a supernatural bent to it as well. As far as the special features are concerned, we have commentaries by Tim Lucas, another one by Roger Corman, another one by Elizabeth Shepard, who gets to play awesome dual roles. And we have trailers from hell from Joe Dante. Yeah, good stuff. Looks great. Sounds great. A great movie. All right, guys, let's hop into those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
Son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, the love that will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
Open season!
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to... Please, stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
All right, first up for 1982 is a doozy. Maniac 2, Love to Kill. I know you guys never heard of Maniac 2. That's right, because it's not really Maniac 2. Not really. It is, of course, the last horror film. Directed by David Winter, starring Joe Spinell. Yeah, this is a very bizarre film. I have not seen it in a long time. Troma distributed it as Fanatic years ago, and then it was released on a DVD. This is like the most crazy release of all time. Like, they went and found like the real elements of with all the gore intact instead of having that in standard def. So Severin really outdid themselves here. Yeah, so I'm having trouble putting it back in the damn thing. But yeah, so this is a really weird movie. It is like kind of self-aware and almost like breaks the fourth wall. Joe Spinell is a cabbie in New York. Of course he is. He's great. And I think he actually was a cabbie at one point. So he lives with his mother, actually played by Spinell's mother. And anybody knows the story of Joe Spinell, he had a really close connection with his mother. Very New York character actor. Spinell's only starring role besides this was in Maniac, of course. So he was in a lot of big films. Of course, Godfather, Rocky, Cruisin', Sorcerer. He's just one of the most recognizable, great character actors of the 70s and 80s. Honestly, Joe Spinell is one of my all-time favorite actors. He has a sense of sadness about him. He had a tragic end. And aren't we all attracted to those guys with the sense of sadness that have tragic ends? I think Warren Oates is another guy that I feel in the same vein. There's just something interesting about these people. Again, I talked about, who is that? Frank Wolf is another guy. It's just strange stories and everything like that. Spinell's one of them, and he's one of the most captivating character actors ever. So this one is not as good as Maniac to me, but is interesting and weird and just a what the fuck movie. It's shot on at the Cannes Film Festival, basically guerrilla style without permits. So this is weird. This movie has a crazy story behind it as well. So they're making this film and they're completely going over budget because Joe Spinell is just a lot to deal with. He's completely out of line. Of course, we get, geez, I can't believe that I'm just not having a good day today. We get Carolyn Monroe to come back, who was in Maniac and Star Crash with him, and she plays an actress, a famous actress, and she's going to Cannes Film Festival for a horror movie and all these kind of things like that. Spinell is absolutely obsessed with her. He has these dreams of becoming this big-time director. At times, that kind of alter ego, it kind of interferes with his visions, and he's all dressed up and all fancied up, and then on the other side, we have sweaty Joe Spinell freaking out, like, why are you doing this to me? So it's such a bizarre kind of little thing in here. And anyways, Joe Spinell ends up going to Cannes Film Festival, and he's trying to get a hold of all the producers and her and all these people that are involved with him. And of course, they ignore him. And then a kind of a killer in the shadows butchers them in pretty brutal fashion, pretty gory fashion, very fun special effects. I don't know if it was ever this gory before, but it certainly is gory now, and there's some pretty nasty kills in here. So all signs point to Joe Spinell, of course, but just seeing Joe Spinell run around the Cannes Film Festival is well worth it. His interactions is just crazy. And also the producer of this film, one of the producers, from my understanding, was obsessed with nudity. So, there's a lot of nude beaches here. So, constantly there's just women walking around. He's just filming all these nude women on the beach. And you're just like, this is insane. This packs in so much nudity. It packs in a good amount of violence and gore. And it has one of the craziest over-the-top Joe Spinell performances ever. Not to mention that it has a really awesome soundtrack. A lot of music that's like, is that familiar? I think I know that. But it's all awesome. The High Wire is a song that gets stuck in your head. Fucking awesome. But no, the soundtrack is great. It's very 80s. It's very memorable. You see visuals like, Cannibal Holocaust in the background and shit. All sorts of posters. A Possession was at the Cannes Film Festival there. So honestly, this is a fucking amazing release in 4K. It's an amazing movie. It's a movie that story is even more amazing than its movie itself. I love the movie. I really do like it. I do think that this will be in my top 25 in 1982. Be hard pressed not to. I'm just a big Joe Spinell fan, and I do like the weirdness and craziness and twist in this movie. I love Carolyn Monroe too. There's just some cool shit about it, man. I really like Last Horror Film, not to be confused with the Last Horror Movie, which is a found footage movie, good as well. But Spinell is the man. I love this. This has a bunch of features on here. This slipcover, it's got this book in here. You know what? I know people are like, that's so expensive. It's like, sometimes I don't care. I know it's shit. I'm one of these guys that's buying this shit at full price sometimes. But when this kind of stuff comes out, I can't help it. As far as the special features, we have Ultra HD with a first disc commentary with actress Carolyn Monroe and Fright Fest Alan Jones. And then we have another commentary with Joe Spinell's assistant Luke Walter. Disc 2, like father figure, Sal Serchichi remembers Joe Spinell. And this was very interesting because I had heard some of the Joe Spinell story before, but everybody always made up those rumors that, the cops found Joe Spinell's head and the fake head from Maniac and they thought he decapitated himself, all this kind of shit like that. And this guy was really close with Joe Spinell towards the end of his life. He was a best friend, a mentor kind of guy, and he kind of always saw Joe get out of hand when his mother died and get uncontrollable, and he would be like, why, don't do that, don't drink as much, don't do the coke, don't do this kind of stuff, and he would talk him out of it. He was a magician, and him and Joe became very fast friends, very close friends, and he breaks down Joe's life. He talks about Joe, the last days and everything like that. It's hard, it's fucked up, it's sad, it's depressing, but it's also very interesting. And it's weird. What was that line in Oz? I keep on going to quote Oz. It's just like, you really, who people know you for things, you know what I mean? Like what you did for a living, where you're born, how you died, and who you had sex with, and how you died. People do remember you for how you died. It's such a weird thing, but it is true. And Joe, of course, was a hemophiliac, and he cut himself and he bled out by himself. Internally, I think. But yeah, so my last horror film ever, illustrated archival audio interview with producer Judd Hamilton, plus all new producer's cut. The last horror film, New York and Cannes locations visited. Visit hosted by Rue Morgue's Michael Gingold and Severance film David Gregory. Excellent movie, fun movie. Interesting as hell and completely batshit. If you're a Spinell fan, if you're a Cannes Film Festival fan, if you're an 80s horror movie fan, check out The Last Horror Film. I honestly think it might be one that you missed out on, and I don't think you should. It's not perfect, but damn, if you've seen every horror movie ever and you watch a lot, this is a hidden gem that could become perfect in your mind. All right, guys, the next one up is from Scream Factory, and this is one of their early releases. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo, Death Valley from 1982, of course. This is one that I've never seen. This is one of the biggest blind spots of 82 for me. It has Peter Billingsley. Billingsley. I can't say that right now for some reason. But the kid from Christmas Story, right? As Paul Lamont from, American Graffiti and Puppet Master. It's got Catherine Hicks from Child's Play. And it's got Stephen McHattie from, Pontypool. And Wilford fucking Brimley from The Thing and Cocoon and a bunch of other movies. Hard Target. That's right. Wilford Brimley. 10 to midnight. But, so Death Valley. I put this in. Edward Herrmann's in here as well, from Lost Boys. And in the very beginning, he's talking to the kid from the Christmas Story. Looks pretty much the same from Christmas Story. And they have this heart-to-heart where he's the father. He's divorced from the mother. And they're going to, Arizona, kind of, I think Arizona and Texas area, whatever. Death Valley, California, whatever. I don't remember. That they're going over to the Southwest to see a bunch of things like that, and he doesn't want to go because he doesn't want to leave his dad behind from New York. And they kind of have this really kind of touching moment where he basically explains, why his parents, why they divorced, why they separated. Give this guy a chance. Your mother's trying really hard, and you're just like, wow, that is such a good moment of acting, especially child acting. Edward Herrmann's a great actor anyways, but you expect that from him. You don't expect that little kid to be that fucking good, but it's just a great moment. So basically after that we have kind of road horror. They make it to the Southwest after they fly, and Paul Lamont picks him up, and you don't know if Paul Lamont in this is going to be a creep or what, but genuinely he's a really well-rounded, solid, realistic character, not without flaws, but I love that. He's nervous. He's dating this woman that he knew for a long time that's always liked, and he has to deal with the kid there. So at first it's just this weird kind of feeling and everything like that, but as they're driving, the kid notices something, a weird car that passes by, he really shouldn't, and he kind of starts to wander around, and we see a bunch of people murdered in an RV. And it's really kind of violent. There's some nudity. I was like, before that, I thought this could have been a PG, but I guess we're not doing that. And there's some pretty effective murders there in an RV. And the kid kind of stumbles in the RV and takes something from it, not knowing that people have been murdered from it. And this kind of puts the killer on his track. If that's anything. I don't want to spoil who the killer is. Wilford Brimley is a local lawman, a sheriff. He's really great in this. I love his interactions with the kid. And there's just so many good moments. Like Paul Lamont has a great interaction with the kid, but what happens is, of course, the killer starts to stalk them after he figures out that this kid knows. And the kid's clever. The kid's smart. The one thing that I noticed is every time they kill somebody in this movie, I felt bad. I don't want to tell all the people who are killed, but I was just they take the time to establish these characters. They're well-liked characters. They're good characters. They have funny moments. They have touching moments. They have realistic moments. And there's a scene with this babysitter where she's eating all this food, and I was like, are they gonna get really mean and you can't eat it. You're a pig or something? And I was gonna be like, because the moment is so saccharine, right? It's so sweet that I was like, I don't want this moment to be ruined. I don't want it to be ruined. It doesn't, because you don't really want to, and it doesn't. And I was like, thank you, because so many of the '80s movies, which I like some of the sex comedies. I love the '80s slashers. They would have been mean as shit. Like a Friday the 13th movie, I'd be like, no, you pig, I want the Snickers, and you're just like, all right, that's Friday the 13th for you. That rude New Jersey kind of attitude thing. But no, in this one, it's not. It's sweet. And I really enjoyed it. The kid acting is exceptional. McHattie's great in it. He's always good. He's so fucking young. Dare I say he's that kind of person that's attractive but scary? You're like, oh shit, I never really saw Stephen McHattie as the attractive type, right? You see him later on in the one with Elijah Wood, Come to Daddy, and then Pontypool. And he's not an awful looking guy or anything, but he's just always played that kind of villainous or weird character. But yeah, this one, you're like, he's actually handsome as kind of a crazy, scary looking guy at the same time. He's got a Willem Dafoe thing, maybe. But Death Valley, I love this. I thought this was fucking very good. But we have an audio commentary with the director, Dick Richards, Richard or Dick Dix, whatever you want to call it. But really like this stuff. Exceptional acting, really well put together. A lot of it is just kind of driving on the road, but it's such a well put together thriller horror movie. I love this. It's great stuff. I love the Southwest too. I've been there years ago, and I've always been infatuated with the Western and all that kind of stuff. So I like that kind of climate, that environment. It speaks to me to a certain extent. Okay, the next one here we have Parasite. That's right. With Debbie Moore's in this movie. And it's one of her first roles, if not her first role. Directed by Charles Band from 1982, of course. And this is the AFCO Embassy movie, so it did have some decent amount of money behind it. I think some of the guys who produced Halloween are involved with here. Yablans, I think, is on here. So, Parasite in 3D. This actually has a 3D version on there, which is badass. Nice release from Kino, to be honest. And I have not watched Parasite in over 20 years, probably. I watched Parasite probably 21 years ago, so that's pretty crazy to think. So anyways, Parasite. I put this in, and I like post-apocalyptic movies and everything like that. We have this guy, and he's basically has a parasite in his body, and he's kind of running from these government officials that are basically running the planet. Think OCP or something, RoboCop, or this big think Amazon now, basically in the future. They're going to be running the country. Everything's going to be made for Amazon, whatever the fuck, whatever, right? So basically he's running. He has a parasite in him. He has another thing in this cylinder that's really important to him. He's a very gaunt, scary looking man. A weird lead. Like, such a weird lead. If you guys thought Steve Railsback was a weird lead, boy, this boy is weird as shit. Like, I'm just like, this is not, like, he's not an awful actor. He's just a bizarre character. Not very much charisma or screen presence in this film. Just, I couldn't believe he was the lead. I was like, this guy's going to die any minute now. And he keeps going. I'm like, oh, shit, this is the lead? What the fuck? So, basically what happens is he kind of runs into some weirdos at this place, and he ends up coming around to Debbie Moore and all these other people. She's young and whatnot. And there's a group of punks that are around. One of which is the director of Ghoulies. Yeah, that's right. He's an actor in some other films as well, but he directed Ghoulies and some other things. Granny from 1995. Underrated, weird-ass movie. Luca Barachi, whatever the fuck his name is off the top of my head. But he's in this as an actor, and he's kind of with a group of punks, and one of the other punks is Cheese. He's the guy from Popcorn. What the fuck is his name? He died very young and very tragically. I'm going to cheat and look at the guy because I'll feel really bad if I forget his name here, if I don't at least mention it. I don't know if he's listed here, but, he's in stuff like Surf 2. And he was in Popcorn and Surf 2, and he died of HIV, AIDS, very young. But he's in this as one of the punk rockers. So basically the punk rockers are giving him a hard time. They set up scenes in here where you kind of are going to have the 3D, and there's like kind of a government official after him and after the parasite. The plot is kind of paper thin, to be honest. Like, there's like 2 or 3 people that were working on this plot. They had the title first, and the plot's boring. The script kind of sucks. I hate saying that because the special effects are good. I think Winston worked on the special effects, and some of the acting is fine. The script's kind of crummy. It's really crummy. It's really by the fucking book. The bad guy, government guy, is fun. He's cool. He has some good one-lines. He's creepy. But overall, the movie's script is pretty crummy. There's one amazing death scene in here. There's kind of like a old actress that's kind of washed up and everything like that, and like. It is like the script is like pasted together. They basically say that they were making this, they were in a rush. You could tell. It's not the worst movie ever. It's semi-entertaining, but it is a rush script, and it shows. And there's this character. She's like this old kind of like, I think Baby Jane, right? She used to be an actress. And what happens is like the slug kind of crawls down, and it's just a well-designed whole scene. If there was more scenes like that in here, we'd have yourself a winner. The parasite looks cool. He's creepy. He's gross. He's a fucking parasite. He's a big parasite that bites people. Overall, this is standard fare. It's not awful. It's not amazing. I enjoy it. Would I watch it again? Probably. Will I love it? Maybe if I get dumber as I go on. Like I said last year, I was watching Home Sweet. I'm like, why the fuck is this the third time I've seen Home Sweet Home with Body by Jake? And then I was like, I think I started to like this movie. I forced myself to like Home Sweet Home. But as far as the special features are concerned, we have From the Inside Out, writing Parasite, interviews with writers Alan J. Alder and Michael Schnoop. 3 Dimensions of Terror, filming Parasite, interviews with director Charles Band, co-writer Alan J. Alder, production manager Charles Nitworth, art director Pamela B. Warner, and makeup department head Karen Kubik. Sympathy for Slimy Slugs, composing Parasite, interview with composer Richard Band. Parasitic, creating and designing Parasite, interview with creature designer and creator Lance Anderson. Audio commentary by screenwriter Alan J. Alder. Restoring Parasite in 3D, 2 TV spots, 3 radio spots, image gallery, theatrical trailer. Boy, they went all out for this thing, and I'm going to be honest with you, it is definitely the special edition of special editions for Parasite. Like, this is the I can't see this movie ever getting re-released again, and it's a very great release for a okay movie, Parasite. Okay, we got a couple that I don't own. The first one up is The Ghost Dance from 1982, and I'm going to be honest with you, the quality of this on YouTube, wherever you see it, it looks like shit. It's very dark. The night scenes are like This is one of the back in the day when people were like, VHS is so much better. I mean, yeah, maybe you didn't grow up with actual VHS, bud. Because when you used to go to the video store and rent 5 or 6 tapes, you'd be excited to get them home or whatever. You take them in, you'd watch them for the week or something, and there's always 1 or 2 of these old horror movies I'd rent where you put in and you can't see shit. Literally, it is pitch fucking black on the night scenes. You can't see anything. You're like, people are like, it's so much better. It's whatever, bro. I know the cover art's better. I'll give you that. But it's the truth. It's not better. It's not better at all. I have nostalgia for VHS. I love VHS, but boy, it ain't better. It ain't a better format. So Ghost Dance follows the story of this. I think he's a shaman, and he accidentally. It's kind of almost like an Egyptian storyline, right? Like a mummy storyline here. He ends up digging up. There's people that are digging up near this site, this ancient Indian burial ground. They really shouldn't. Not everyone gave him permission, but they ended up getting through some legalities. They can do it. And there's a shaman who's not happy about it. He's there one day, and boom, he gets possessed by some ancient evil. He starts picking off and slaughtering all the people. That's basically the plot of the movie. There's a couple good deaths in here. Honestly, if this thing was remastered, I would be much more friendly towards it. But it's hard to give this a good recommend when you can't see what the fuck is happening, you know? Was that a good kill? I think so. It sounded good. It looked kind of decent, but I can't see it. You can't see much. The acting is not like some amazing acting. The characters aren't that amazing. It's kind of a forgettable movie, to be honest, and I think that is due to the quality of it. I mean, I don't think it ever had a nice release. Overall, Ghost Dance it's all right. It's an okay slasher film. I think could benefit from a remastered Blu-ray out there. I'm sure that eventually they'll all get remastered and put out, and hopefully this one gets discovered and it's much better than it looks on VHS, because it's hard to see. There's a couple decent kills, but it's very standard slasher fare. It has the unique Native American bend, which I rarely see work, to be honest. I know there's scalps out there as well, the Fred Olen Ray movie, but it's really hard to incorporate Native American horror without just coming across really trite and cheap and just on the nose in a lot of horror films. I know Nightwing, the Killer Bat one's pretty fun, but I think that the idea of people that kind of worked on this site getting killed is very Egyptian mummy style, but it fits. So The Ghost Dance. All right, the next one up is Till Death Do Us Part, and I think this was a TV movie originally, and this has some slasher aspects, some crime aspects, and it definitely, I was talking about this, how there's like all these honeymoon horror. There's some honeymoon horror came out, and what was the Blood Bride I covered for 82, and then there's just like some other ones too. So this one kind of has that. What we have here in the very beginning is this woman's kind of trying to escape this house. She falls out of a window, and she gets brutally murdered, and it's kind of like cut in flashes. You don't really see what happens. She falls in a bear trap, whatever. Then we kind of fast forward, and James Keach, that's right, Stacy Keach's brother, stars in this movie, and I think a year before he was he in The Bean? Was that James Keach in The Bean, or was he supposed to be James Keach, and they could get James Keach as some other asshole? He voiced, I think, the lead character in The Bean. But anyways, what happens is James Keach and his wife and 2 other couples go to this, one Matt Craven and his wife. So Matt Craven from Happy Birthday to Me the year before, and Intruder Within from the year before. And he would go on to be in Jacob's Ladder. But anyways, it's a couples retreat. And there's this kind of weird shrink, this doctor who writes books, and he's supposed to be a fraud, A lot of people think he is a fraud. The wife of James Keach thinks so. And he does these weird kind of crazy things at his mansion with his wife and tries to fix everybody's marriage. So a couple of the people are like an older couple, and the guy is a character actor you've seen before, and he's just an ornery prick. He bitches at everybody. He tries to sleep with all the women. Overall, piece of garbage, but he's pretty funny, and his performance is pretty solid. We come to find out that, of course, James Keach is a journalist, and he's trying to get some dirt on the good old doctor. There's some other people there besides the wife. There's a brother of the wife who seems mysterious. There's an old caretaker who seems kind of red herring-ish. There's a bunch of red herrings. And of course, before long, they start getting picked off, and there's crosses carved in their head. The body count's not super high. The characters are fairly interesting for what it is. It's kind of sloppy at times. The ending is really sloppy to the point at the very end of the credits, you're like, what the fuck is that? But I've enjoyed the movie, I'm not going to lie. Maybe something in vain of like House of Delusion, or House of Evil, aka Delusion, which Vinegar Syndrome just put out recently, so I could see it being in that kind of vein. This one is not bad. You know what? For how like kind of, like, I guess you'd say tedious. Like, it doesn't feel like that much happens in here, but while watching it, I was never bored. I was always into the film. So that's Till Death Do Us Part. I kind of liked it. I don't know if I can give a wholehearted recommend or anything, but I enjoyed the film. So check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. Last up is the Patreon pick, and it was Jonathan Wilhelm. He said, watch a Leprechaun movie that I haven't covered on here before. So I decided to start right at the fucking beginning with Leprechaun 1 from 1992, I think it is. It's been years since I watched Leprechaun. So I always loved Leprechaun as a kid. I was always hyped. Think I was 6 or 7 when Leprechaun was in the video stores in that big Trimark kind of day, right? Vidmark and Trimark were everywhere. And there was just these sleazy kind of horror movies they'd put out, like The Dentist or Leprechaun or Wishmaster. I think Wishmaster was actually Artisan. But regardless, all these kind of movies in that vein, and Trimark always had a bunch of these weird ones, and Leprechaun was the one on the cover where he's just like behind that door. And I loved Leprechaun, directed by Mark Jones growing up. Of course, it has Jennifer Aniston in it, and who else pops up in this one? Mark Holston. Mark Holston is also in one of the Pee-wees. He's in Teen Wolf. Yeah, so I think he was in the TV show, wasn't he? Pee-wee. It's been a long time since I watched that show. Used to love Pee-wee Herman as a kid. Barely remember shit. So Leprechaun, played by Warwick Davis, of course. Had a bunch of sequels. I've covered some on here. I've covered part 2 on here. I've covered part 5, Leprechaun in the Hood, and Leprechaun in the Hood part 2. Covered both of those, and I've covered Returns. So I still need to watch 3, 4, and Origins, and I'll cover all the Leprechauns on my channel for some apparent reason. But yeah, so when I used to like this as a kid, I tried to rewatch it when I was about 18 or so, and I was like, this sucks. That's the bad time to watch those kind of movies because you're too cool for school. You're like, Leprechaun, this dumb. You don't get it. You don't get that this was aimed for kind of a gateway horror kind of for kids. So originally, you watch the special features on here, which I thought were great. There's a nice little documentary with the director and all the people that they could get. And they talk about how this was aimed at kids at first. Mark Jones wanted to make this a kids film. He wanted it to be a gateway horror film. And Warwick Davis loved that idea as well. But the producers, first time director, they were like, listen, we think this works better as a horror film. Why don't you add some gore in here? And they had William Sachs, I think is his first name Sachs, who directed Incredible Melting Man, worked on some rewrites and stuff like that and all that kind of stuff to add violence. He wasn't a fan of the film at all. But the end result, honestly, watching Leprechaun, it's going to be weird and I sound like an idiot, but I think it held up. I think that watching it just put me back in a time where I was like, I kind of wish they made movies like this still. It doesn't even have to be that hard-rated gore or anything like that. So basically the story is in the very beginning, this Irishman comes home to his wife and he's like, I got a leprechaun, we're gonna be rich. And that's probably offensive, but hey, got the leprechaun. So he puts the leprechaun in there with a 4-leaf clover on the thing. Of course, the leprechaun gets out, causes his wife to have a tragic death, heart attack, and his powers in this are generally awesome and has some creepy stuff in here. It's kind of well done, like in his powers, and he has the weaknesses. It's just more well thought out than a lot of the other sequels. But what happens is this guy ends up having a stroke. The house almost burns down. Years later, some new people move in. Jennifer Aniston and of course her dad. And there's some painters that they hire to fix the place up. One is played by what is his name, Ali or something like that. I can't remember his name, but he's basically a slow guy. I think he's essentially the town Ernest or the town guy from Critters. That slow guy that hangs out with kids. That's a very common trope at this time in the 80s and 90s. It's like, hey, I'm your slightly mentally handicapped grown man, also Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, hanging out with your child. Nowadays we'd be like, no, we're not, this isn't happening. But then they were like, yeah, here's my drunk driving grandpa and my peeping Tom uncle. These are like the 3 characters of the 80s and 90s that are just like they wrote out of film history as time went on. But they were very fun-loving. They were very beloved at one point, okay, believe me. So what happens is, of course, they unleash the leprechaun, and his gold is missing. And Ali had swallowed a piece, so it's Ozzy. But no, there's just a lot of fun about it, and the leprechaun starts to pick off people here and there. His tricks are very fun, and it's some decent gore in here. Warwick Davis steals the show. He's the highlight of these movies. The makeup job by Gabe Bartolos is really good, too. Gabe Bartolos went on to direct a couple movies himself in St. Bernard and Skin Deep, which are crazy, weird-ass movies. He did the special effects on Basket Case 2 and 3. Gabe Bartolos is an underrated special effects artist. His work is very unique and very recognizable, almost in the vein of like a Screaming Mad George or something like that. But I like his work. I think it's very cool. I think it's very good. And I think he does a great job with Warwick Davis. And I think Warwick Davis is perfect. The puns are great. The rhyming is funny. The constantly having to shine shoes. I was a cobbler in my actual day. But I enjoyed watching this, actually. I think that Leprechaun is kind of I wouldn't say underrated. It had very popular, but I don't hear too many people talk about the first Leprechaun in a positive light anymore. You know, it's kind of a joke. But rewatching it, I was like, you know what? I have a lot of affinity for the first Leprechaun. I do enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to watching Part 3 because I remember Part 3 being the best of the bunch, or it's said to be the best of the bunch, directed by Brian Trenchard Smith. And I don't like 2 very much. I think 2's pretty crummy, but I think 1's a lot of fun. And, you know, after this one was such a hit, they rushed the other ones and everything like that. But, yeah, it brings me back to the Trimark days and the video store days and everything like that, right? Kind of right before it got really bad in the video store days. But anyways, Leprechaun, fun stuff. Mark Jones, I enjoy it. Check it out. And also there's special features on this pot of gold. This thing's a fucking steal. As the first, 7 Leprechauns in here, and it has a bunch of special featurettes on all the movies. So, yeah, pick this up. It's good stuff. And then you only have to pick up Leprechaun Returns. So, and that one's fun, too. Direct sequel to the first one. But yeah, this is an enjoyable movie. I really like it. All right, let's get these questions, comments, concerns, all that jazz. D. Gulag. Perry Carvello from Windy City Heat does live streams regularly. It's pretty entertaining stuff. I can imagine. Subjective Perspective Collective. Raw Force. Hell yeah. You got me sold at martial arts zombies, Cameron Mitchell, and cannibalistic monks. Fuck yeah, brother. Yeah. I mean, I can't make this shit up. Awaken Lighten 2298. Dude, love what you're bringing with horror. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Steven 3264. Natalie's movie Aftercube. Cypher is an underrated little sci-fi gem. Recommended. I've never heard of that movie, honestly. Thanks for the recommend. Burns 2814. Hi there. Quarks made toast French is very bad for me, so I think you have it already. Don't know the English title. Maybe All Gods in the Sky. So I'll have to check that out. Good reviews as usual. Thank you. The guy who directed Pandemonium directed that. Doom Moviethon, great podcast. How old is this? It's a Doom show. Check them out. Don't Look in the Attic. Man, I've struggled with that one. 3 viewings and I still don't like it. I hope it gets a blue just so I can give it one more chance. You know, it's a movie that I was fine with it. I enjoyed it. I always heard bad things. It's not a movie I'm going to die on its hill. Like if someone's like, I hate that movie, I'm like, I can see it. I'm not gonna it's not like Return of the Living Dead or Day of the Dead where somebody's like, that sucks. I'm like, you fucking suck. You know, but I'm just gonna roll over like a dog and let them have it on Don't Look in the Attic. Mr. Mansion, you ever have the discs that suffer from disc rot? Scares the shit out of me. I've had a handful of discs that have gotten it so far, no rhyme or reason at all. Not really. I have noticed that my Creatures from the Abyss disc looked like it was kind of fucked up, so I kind of just took the files and put them on my computer. But it certainly seems to be for Media Blasters or Shriek Show. Some of those discs are a little iffy, if you ask me. I know that there's certain times and from certain companies and certain times that have been more prevalent to disc rot. Where do you live and what is the climate like? To be honest, so I basically keep a dehumidifier in the movie room, and I keep it on sub-level, not in the basement or anything like that. I think humidity, heat, extreme cold, extreme humidity can really cause damage to the disc. Maybe I'm crazy, who knows? But, yeah. Ken Coakley, Windy City Heat is in my wheelhouse. Perry Carvello is doing podcasts where he basically e-bags for not only money, but also expensive things such as jet skis, motorcycles, and whatnot, only to have unboxing videos in which he receives kitty litter, adult diapers, tampons. I wanted to lift the idea because I wanted to see what crazy stuff I would get, and donate certain things secretly, such as if I were to receive kitty litter, dog food, or cat food. I would donate them to animal shelter. But with Perry C, it's all real. The only gag I will give you away from Windy City Heat is when they make him do his own stunts, but have a double for the sex scenes, and they say they need real penetration. Of course they don't, but he flips his wig. If you like Perry C stuff, there's an internet phenomenon called the Dabbleverse, in which a lot of people riff on stuttering John Melendez. He was on the show once as a guest, and the host said that since the Tonight Show went off the air, the host had heard that he was dabbling in stand-up comedy. He lost it and gave her a hard time, then proceeded to mock her physical appearance, even though she's actually quite pretty. So Anthony Cumia, formerly of Opie and Anthony, Shuggy Agar, and Bob Levy, formerly the Howard Stern Show, made fun of stuttering John. Let's see what it is. All the time because he's a real-life Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. There's a foul-mouthed puppet named Tukey and a guy who uses potato filter. Stuttering John blocked Tukey from his show for using Italian slurs. Tukey was created by an Italian-American. But Stuttering John makes Perry Carvello look like salt of the earth. John complains when he thinks he's not getting enough super chats and calls his viewers cheapskates. Stuttering John will make your blood boil. He claims that the Dabbleverse comedians trash his kids, who are all adults. You have to listen to Who Are These Podcasts, The Uncle Rico Show, and Tukey Soup. There's almost 3 years of material. I'll check that out. Abba, I have Death Dream on DVD, but it's been sitting on my shelf for years, but haven't seen it. After this review, I absolutely have to see it. Let me know what you think. Nick Moore from Belgium. The Vietnam War really destroyed a generation, didn't it? All wars do some level, I suspect. Death Dream seems like a grim testimony about the time, but done in such a captivating way. Bob Clark was a genius. talent for certain. Questions 1. Which of Bob Clark's films speaks to you most? For me, it's Murder by Decree. Still gives me shivers. Oh, Death Dream. Hands down, Death Dream. Which Roger Corman films don't get enough love? I think some of the ones I love Galaxy of Terror, but I'm sure that gets enough love. Intruder with William Shatner. That's the one. That's probably the one. How good are you at guessing who the killer is in Italian Gialli? Loving the Profano Rosso tank top gives me regards to cats. Take care. Not that great because I don't try to guess on those. I just let it play. Sometimes I can guess, sometimes I don't bother. Stephen Cowie, Death Dream is a film that needs more love, overshadowed by certain others in his work. Maybe. Kudos. Thank you. Kadam, some heavy hitters this week. Great job. Thank you. Fetish Magic. Had to watch immediately. Really enjoyed this one. You sold me on Death Dream, Impulse, Pandemonium, and Windy City. You're looking sexy as ever, Mr. Parker, and you murdered all these reviews. You usually undermine yourself and defer to others about film knowledge, but I always learn something when I watch your videos. Wishing your sexy ass a lovely week. Thank you. I appreciate it. Stephen Hyde. I love this. Your videos cheer me up. And way up, dude. Thanks for the thumbs up and everything. Travis Linscomb. I still haven't seen Vice Squad, but I've been looking forward to it because it gets the highest praise from Eller Kane. Thanks for the video and sharing your take on it, Dave. No problem. Beyond55. Nice video, man. If you need any background music, I have tons of beats. I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, we're just going to do the update right here because it's very short, but I think very worthwhile. First up, we have Killer Klowns from Outer Space on 4K, Scream Factory release. I love Killer Klowns from Outer Space, grew up with it. Everybody knows that the population's going down. Great movie. Love this fucking thing, man. Super fun. Also great gateway horror. And then another classic, much different movie, is the 4K of Once Upon a Time in the West. Excellent film. Sergio Leone at his finest. Possibly the greatest Western film ever made. I personally like The Wild Bunch, but this might be the greatest of all time. I wouldn't argue with someone if they said so. But yeah, anyways, we're going to get out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.